Hello everybody, in this video we are going to continue our conversation about how to write linear inequalities from a verbal description. So in the previous video we watched how we can set up a standard form equation, graph it, and represent a solution set to the inequality. We're going to do the same thing with this example right here. So this one is talking about tickets for a school play that costs $3 for students and $6 for adults. The drama club hopes to bring in at least $450 in sales, and then it goes on to tell us that A represents the number of adult tickets, S represents the number of student tickets, and then we are going to write the inequality in standard form to represent the situation. Then we're going to determine the X and the Y intercept of the line. So with that being said, I do want to remind you what we talked about for standard form. So I'm going to take a moment to go back and remind you that when we're looking for a standard, trying to write a standard form inequality, there's three things that we're looking for. We're looking for a variable with a value, we're looking for a second variable with a value, and a total amount. So if we go back to the word problem that we just looked at, we can try to find all three of these so we can organize it into this standard form equation. So let's take a moment to look at our word problem and then pull out all the information and then organize it. Okay, so the first thing that stands out to me is that A represents the number of adult tickets. And then you're going to also notice that they do give us a number that's associated with adult tickets, which is $6 for adults. The second thing is the second variable, which is S, which represents the number of student tickets. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. Now there is a number here that represents how much the student tickets cost, and that is $3 for students. So not only do we have both of our variables, but we have both of the values that go with those. The last number that we're looking at is it says that they hope to bring in at least $450. So when we're using the word at least, we know that we'll be happy with $450, but we can do more. So it will be greater than or equal to 450. So with that being said, let's go ahead and organize our information. So we know that A represents adult tickets, and they cost $6. Okay. Our second variable is going to be S, and that is represented by student tickets. And according to our word problem, that costs $3 per student ticket. And then it says at least 450, so we said greater than or equal to 450. That is our C value because that is the total amount of money that we're going to make from both kinds of tickets. So we're going to say 6A plus 3S is greater than equal to 450. And so now that we have this, we're going to find our X and Y intercept. So I'm going to remind you that we need a small table so we can organize our zeros. A 0 for X and a 0 for Y. So we're going to work this standard form equation twice. One, we're going to replace our A with 0. So I'm going to put a little A here. And then we're going to work it again as S for 0. Right, so let's go ahead and set this up. So notice that I rewrote the standard form equation. I replaced the A with 0. We know 0 times 6 gives us 0. So we don't have to write it down. And we're left with 3S is greater than equal to 450. So we're going to have to divide both sides by 3. So we're going to take 450 and divide it by 3, which gives us 150. So S is greater than or equal to 150. So let's go ahead and write that in here. And that is our first point. That is our Y intercept. All right, we have to do it one more time, but this time we're going to replace the S with 0. So we're going to say 6A plus 3 times 0 is greater than equal to 450. All right, anything times 0 is 0, so we're left with 6a is greater than equal to 450. And if we take 450 and divide it by 6, we're going to get 75. So I'm running out of room here, but I'm going to go ahead and write it right there. Okay. So we're going to take that information and put it right here. So now that we have our 2 points, we need to go ahead and label our axes, our x and y axis, according to what we wrote right here. And then we can go ahead and plot those points. So let's go ahead and label our x-axis adult tickets. We're going to say. Okay. And so that means that our y-axis, which is this one, would be student tickets. All right, let me organize that. All right, so now that we have our axis is labeled, let's go ahead and find 0 here. And we're going to go up to 150. Right there. And then we're going to go to 75. So 70 would be here, so 75 would be a little bit closer to the 80. So we're going to do it right there, because then 0 tells us to go up and down 0. All right, once again, I want to remind you that we have an equal to sign here, so that lets us know that we're drawing a solid line. So anytime you have the line underneath, it is going to be a solid line. All right, so as you're looking at this one, notice what it says here. It says that it has to be greater than equal to 450. So because we're looking for something to be greater than 450, it is not going to be below the line. It's going to be above this line. So all of these numbers here represent numbers that would add up to be greater than 450. So I'm going to take my highlighter and I'm going to represent the solution set, which is anything above that line. So as you can tell, we have shaded everything above this line. So that lets us know that this is our solution set. Any point located in the shaded region is going to be a number that multiplied by 6 multiplied by 3 would give us a number greater than 450. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and pick a point in the shaded region. It doesn't matter which one. I'm also going to pick a point in the non-shaded region so I can show you how it gives us a true and a false statement. All right, so there's nothing special about these 2 points other than the fact that one of them is in the shaded region. So I'm picking 100 and 120, but you can pick any point on this side. I have plugged in 100 for A and 120 for S, and I've also put it on my calculator just to kind of do this quickly. And notice it gives me 960. So we know that 960 is not equal to 450, but it is greater than. So for that reason, this is a true statement. So any point that you pick on the side would give you a true statement when you plug it in and calculate it according to that standard form equation. We're going to do the same thing with this one so you can see how this would give us a false statement, something that is not true. All right, so as you can see, I went ahead and plugged in 20 for A, 40 for S, and I put it in my calculator, and I'm getting 240. And 240 is not equal to 450, but it's also not greater than 450. So for that reason, this point right here is not a solution. So I can pick any point in this non-shaded region, and it will give me a false statement. So like I said before, there are so many different combinations, and not just the whole numbers, but the fractions and the decimals that are located between these grid lines that would give us a true statement. So we don't have the time to list every single one of the solutions out, that it's much easier to just shade that section on the graph and say that everything in this area would be considered part of the solution. So I hope that helped clarify a little bit more about how to write those equations or inequalities in standard form, identify the x and the y intercept, and determine what is a solution and a non-solution on a graph for inequalities. There is a part 3, and that is how are we graphing linear inequalities. So I'll see you guys in the next video.